Thank you once again this morning for joining this morning's session on support tickets and cases for Dynamics 365. Just as an introduction, my name is Chris Tyeg. I am a help desk analyst lead for CRM Dynamics. And once again, thank you for joining with us. So just a few items before we jump into the entire session. For some housekeeping items. For any questions that you might have, please feel free to put them down on the message box below within your GoToWebinar console. What we're hoping to do is that if we can capture all the questions within that message box, hopefully by the end of the session, we can take note of all the questions, send out an email later on with all the responses, and send them off to all the participants for today's session. Reason for that is just so that we can ensure that we can provide you with best answers and not just a quick little answer that may not be, full in detail. So at least by taking note of all the questions that you provide for us, we can give you a more detailed answer to those specific questions with regards to our session today. Now, in terms of what we will cover, we have a few items here today. We have introduction to cases, how to add or create cases. And again, this is all from within CRM Dynamics 365, how to resolve cases, as well as how to create routing rules, how to reopen cases that have already been resolved, and lastly, just a simple item on how we can look at these cases within a dashboard on your CRM environment, along with the views that you've created. So first, just an intro to cases. Cases are out of the box within CRM Dynamics or Dynamics 365. Cases, and depending on your organization, depending on the company that you have and the kind of business that you hold, you may not necessarily be using cases. And so perhaps the reason why you're here today is because you have within your business process a support area or support department or a business or help desk area. So cases are primarily used for tickets or incidents and keeping track of all the activities related to a case or support call that you might have within your business. Now, again, this is whether or not they are external or internal. It's regardless of that, you can use the cases entity for that purpose. Now, the great thing with the cases entity is that it provides you with a ticketing or a ticket number or a case number. Now, for those of you who have a help desk within your environment or within your business, the typical process of sending your support calls, perhaps a phone number that you have to contact or an email that you have to send these issues to, at which point they will provide you with a case number. Now, for most companies, if they don't have CRM, there's an actual ticketing system that they may have. There's a few out there. But thankfully, in this case, if you have CRM, you have the ability to use or to create tickets and capture support calls and support incidents within your CRM environment through the cases entity. Now, let me just give me 1 second. So this is our agenda for today. I will pull up give me 1 second, the environment that we have here. Oh. There we go. So this is a test environment that I have for within a 365 environment. This is my company, Here to Help company, and here's my dashboard. Now, within the cases entity, again, this is out of the box. It's a feature that you have available to you, and it's one, again, that you can keep track of your support calls or incidences. Now, the reason that you might want to use this cases entity is because you want to be able to keep track of all the interactions and activities that you have in relation to a support call that you might have. Think of it this way. If you have a briefcase, think of it as a briefcase or a folder wherein you can have multiple different briefcases for different support calls. So for instance, if I'm an advisor of some sort reaching out to a client of mine. In most cases, if I'm going to reach out to a client who has a specific issue about a certain topic, I would use my briefcase, fill it in with all of the interactions that I've had with this individual, whether it was a note that I wrote down on a piece of paper or a tissue or something that I printed out, some of their applications, whatever it might be in relation to this specific case or situation that they may have. I would throw it all into my briefcase and bring it to me in my meeting. So it works the same way with the case in CRM. In CRM, you can keep track of all of your interactions within one case record. So we're looking at it within the CRM environment that we have here. So first, we can jump into our cases entity, and that's simply by going through within your CRM, going through your service module. That's up here. And within there, you'll see cases as an option. So click on cases. Now, currently, there's a couple of items on my active cases list. Let me see if I can dock that. Move that aside. Now, as you can see, I have a couple of items here. So we'll just go through what one item might look like. So for instance, again, in speaking of a briefcase or a case item here, if you had any interactions with this specific case or situation, you would keep track of all that information within the activities section. And this is sort of where you keep track of all your interactions, all of your back and forth conversations, whether it was through a phone call, an email, whether it was a note that you've captured through a task, or maybe it was a meeting that you've had. All of that would be captured here, and how that's beneficial for you within the support department that you might have is that if somebody were to jump into this specific case record, whatever the issue might be, in this case, service information is required, you could quickly jump into the activities to see what has happened in the process of trying to resolve this specific situation. So before we jump any further, let's go through adding a case. So as you saw, I simply went into service module, went into cases, and from within the case entity or section, you can see that there is a button at the top that says new case. So you can simply click on new case to add a case. It'll open up a new record. Not much on there, quite pretty blank and pretty basic in terms of what you can enter into that area. You can always customize the form again, similar to any other entities or any other forms within the CRM environment. You can customize it to add a couple more fields or different functionality to it. But today we're just going to go through some of the basic functionalities of the case and how we can use it and utilize it for support tickets and keeping records of incidents. Now, that was one way of creating a new case, and that was through the service module, selecting the case and clicking on the new case button. There's also a quick add feature here where you can also, again, quickly, by clicking on the plus sign at the top, selecting the case button here, it'll open up a quick create case form. A few seconds there. And again, you can customize this to a certain extent, not to the same extent as you would a regular form, but you can add a couple fields here that you want your support team to capture information, the basic information that you want the support team to capture. So we'll go through, we'll cancel this one. So again, as you can see, it's very basic in terms of what you can enter here. And it's just a quick way to add that information. You can always refer back to that specific record later on throughout the day if you want to add more details to it and connect other interactions into it. But for now, we'll just jump back into our other situation here. Here you can see that there's a new case added. You can, again, add a customer. We'll just click Blue Yonder Airlines. If you had a contact person there that you can add, you can definitely select that from your list here. If not, you can create a new contact and associate it to this specific case. Case title. Now here you can add just a description, a very brief description of what this case is about. So let's say in this situation, you can say that problem printing from my computer. So this could be an internal case where somebody calls in from your team, from within your staff, within your organization, asking for assistance on printing. And so again, this is just the case title. The ID here is auto-generated. Once we save this case, it'll create a case ID. Now within the case ID, you can modify the prefix that it creates with the case ID, along with the suffix to it as well. Here, if you have any specific subjects in relation to cases, you can add that as well. As you can see in this case, it's not a required field, so we don't need to add it. But if ever you decide to, you can add a couple of subject items to be more specific. Helpful in terms of when you're running reports on your tickets, on your cases, on your active or resolved tickets. You can run a report based off of your specific subjects or whatever other fields that you might have available on your case form. In this case, we have your title. You can select the origin. Now, where did this call come from? You can, again, it's not a required field, but it could help as well in terms of how this case came about. So we can select phone in this situation. Somebody called me from Blue Yonder specifying that they had a problem printing from their computer. Now, description. You can be a little bit more detailed in terms of what the exact problem is. Client, in this case, we can say client is experiencing some issues printing from their computer using a laptop, etc. So whatever you have in terms of a description, you know, it's probably important to have a little bit more detail in there so that in the case where somebody jumps into this record to see what this problem was about, they can go to the description to find a little bit more detail to what this is all about, what we have in the title. It's also helpful in future so that in case somebody has another printing problem in the future and they know of an existing case in relation to another printing problem, they can see in the description if it's somewhat similar to what they're experiencing, and with that they can look at the interaction that they've had and see if the solution that was put out there for this in resolving this case can be applied to the other case that might be open at this moment. Okay. So in this case, we have the basic information. We can save. And there you have it. We have our first case created. We have Blue Yonder as the account holder or as the company who is experiencing issues. We have the case title along with the new case ID. Now, the great thing with that is that in future, if ever you have the client wanting to follow up with you with regards to a case, you can send them this case ID number. And you can tell them if ever you have a question, you can reference your ticket, or you can ask us, or you can inquire about that specific ticket using this specific ID. And so it's easier for them to send you that information and have you use that to reference in CRM the details to that specific ID. Better than telling them, you know, giving them a title or giving them some sort of vague information they can give you. You can give them, the case ID to be more specific. Along with that as well, upon creating a case, and we won't go into it too far, you can create workflows in which you can have it so that it automatically sends this information to a staff member or somebody from your support team once this is saved, if it meets certain criteria within your case. You can create workflows for that as well. But we will be talking about routing rules within the cases as well, which does very similar things in terms of reassigning these cases depending on certain situations and criteria that are met within this specific case item. Okay, so that's adding a case. So that was pretty straightforward. Now, in terms of the interactions, again, what we want to do with cases is keep everything that keep all of the interactions, any sort of conversations, any notes that you might have within this specific problem in this specific case record. It's just easier for you to reference in future. So to do that, depending on how you're set up, for our environment here, we have our Outlook connected to our CRM. So when emails come in through our Outlook, and if your environment is set up in the same way, you can have it so that you can track your email and set it in regards to that specific case number, which in this case is this. So that if any communication goes through Outlook and through your emails with your client, Blue Yonder Airlines, about this specific topic, you can always throw it back into this case. And it's important because you want to be able to keep track of all that, all of those conversations within this one specific case record. Now, outside of that, you can also add a phone call. So in this case, this was a phone call in which this came from. So we can say that this was a phone call in regards to printer problems. And again, you can be as detailed as you want. It was a call with Blue Yonder, and it was an incoming call. Now there's the interaction that we've had there. If I had emails, they would also show up here as well. It would show it in chronological order by date, I believe, and it will show you and allow you to scroll through the different conversations and interactions that you've had with Blue Yonder with regards to the printer problem that they've been experiencing. Now, again, if you wanted to create automatic rules to route this to specific individuals, depending on criteria, we would create routing rules, which we'll cover later on. But in this case, just as an example of how it works, I've created already a routing rule in the background, which will route this specific case record to another individual within the company that I have here. So, and how I've set it up is I've set it up so that if anything that comes into a case record that is of an origin phone, we can route it to another user. So once you've had that routing rule set up, you would simply save and route. Again, we'll show you how to create these routing rules and within CRM and how to activate that as well. So there's our case that we created. As you can see, this is my active case, problem printing from my computer, customers Blue Yonder. You can also customize this view to show you more or less columns and information as you please, right? So we can open this up depending on if the routing rule has completed. As you can see, I am no longer the owner. It is now Business Application Platform Service account. It was just another user within the CRM. So by simply creating that rule and saving and routing it, it automatically sent it to this user to work on. You can also set it to a queue or to a team or to a user as well. And that'll help because if in future, when you have cases coming in, and I'm sure depending on the business that you have, you might have different kinds of cases coming from different places, different priority level as well. And you can set these routing rules to function in a way where they can send these cases and reassign them to different individuals depending on where they came from, the origin of the case, whether it was a high priority item or a low priority. Again, you can set different conditions to it and have it set so that it sends to the correct individuals or the correct team within your organization. Instead of having to physically manually click on here and search for the user that you might want to reassign it to, or even at this point here, as you can see within the business process flow stage at the top, it shows you where you are in your case. The initial identify stage shows you and allows you just to enter the company along with a couple of other items, which is the contact and the case title. If you move on to the next stage, which is the research stage, at which point we are probably in right now, you can also reassign it here as well. So depending on how you want to function, if you want to create routing rules, we can go through that way. You can also do it manually by changing it here, which would automatically also change this field to show and reflect the new owner, or you can do it from this field as well to reassign it. The other way too is you can reassign it from using this button. So there's multiple ways of pushing this specific case record to another individual. But it's pretty easy when you use the routing rule, or even just even in this case, going through this business process flow stage and reassigning it here from within this field. Okay. So now how to resolve this. So let's say we've gone through the process of troubleshooting and everything is gone, and we've tested everything that we've needed to test with regards to this specific case and issue. And we found that, you know what, we're pretty good. Everything is good. The client is happy. He's confirmed, he or she has confirmed that the problem is no longer there. They're able to print to their printer from their computer. Great. And we can go to the next stage here, and you can mark it as resolved. And again, throughout your research process, you want to be able to keep track of all of your interactions and put them all within this specific case record, so that in future, if ever you want to retrace your steps into the steps that you took to resolve this case, the conversations that you've had, it's also to ensure that you know, in future, if they wanted to ask you how you went through that process, you have sort of a history of the conversation and the steps that you've taken in that process of resolving this specific issue. So once you have all that information there, and your client is happy, or whether it's your organization and your staff is happy with the results, you can mark it as resolved. Now there's also a few ways of resolving the case. One way is by going through the stage that we see there, the business process flow, by simply clicking on mark it resolve. It will bring you up this screen here, which will allow you to give a brief description of the resolution. Again, you don't have to be too detailed. You can put the details in your description, or perhaps you can add another field, or you can have multiple ways of putting that description in there. Billable time, if you wanted that, you can add that as well. Depending on how much time is taken, depending on how your support team works, you can add this information there as well. I'm not going to cancel it here yet, but I will show you the other methods of resolving the case. So this is one way, through the business process flow stage here. The other way is by simply just going to the resolve case at the top. Okay, so once you've completed everything, you can simply click on resolve case, and the same screen will pop up. Now another method of resolving a case or a ticket that you might have is through the view that we were looking at previously. So I'm just going to get out of here and just jump over to my cases view. As you can see, my active cases, if you wanted to resolve this specific case, you can simply click on that. Now, as you can see, that the one that we created with regards to the printer problem is no longer on my active cases. And the reason being is that we've reassigned it to another individual. And so if they were to look at their active cases, now they'll see a new case added to them. And so it's always going to be dynamic. As soon as you will reassign it, it'll be taken away from your list, reassigned to the specific person that you have assigned the case record to. And that works for other records and other pieces within CRM, where you reassign contact records, account records. The same thing applies, where if it is owned by you, once you've reassigned it, it will be moved over dynamically and fairly quickly over to the other individual. So again, the other method of resolving is by going into your view, and as you can see at the top navigation bar, you can see that there is now, after you've checked off which one you want to resolve, you can click on resolve case. And again, the same thing as previously before, you can add a resolution, a description of whether you type in resolved or whatever it might be that you want to type in there. And hit resolve. And once it's resolved, it's now removed from my active cases, my list of active cases. If you want to review any of your resolved cases from within the different views that you have set up here, and again, some of these are, you can create your own views, but by default, you have some system views that the CRM has already provided for you, which are very helpful in looking for information. So if you look at resolved cases here, we'll see the service information required case that we just recently resolved. So pretty straightforward in terms of resolving those cases. Now, if ever, for instance, you went through the process of resolving these cases, but for whatever reason, something has come up and you need to reopen these cases, you can simply open up service information. In this case, this is the case that I want to reopen. And as you can see, once you've resolved the case, you'll see the status as resolved here. And you'll see that the status is problem solved. And in this case, once it's been resolved, you can't really change much in here. Everything is sort of read-only at this point. Let me just go back to... Great. So everything is read-only. You can't modify the title. However, now that we want to reopen this case because we want to perhaps add more items to the details, perhaps it's still ongoing, the problem has come back, and instead of creating a new case, you want to reopen this and continue working on the same case record for easier reference, I guess, in this situation. So we can simply just click on Reactivate Case. And simply click on Reactivate. There we have it. So now we can now continue working on this item, add a few more items, a few more details to it, continue to research and go back through resolving this case. And once you've completed that process, again, you can go through the steps of resolving the case. And if you can see here behind this screen, you'll see that one of the activities was the resolve activity that we've just created previously, and it shows you that history. And it's nice to see that because then it shows that we at one point closed the case but had to reopen it for whatever reason and whatever purpose. And so here we can resolve issue again. And here we have it. Now you can see that this was canceled, the initial resolve. Now this is once again resolved and completed by myself here. Now for us here at this at our organization at CRM Dynamics, we use this the case entity often for keeping track of our support tickets. Anytime any of our clients would contact us with any questions, any problems, typically they send these requests through an email. In most cases, it's in an email. There might be instances where we may have phone calls, or perhaps even, if we're lucky, we have some those who come straight to our desk, right, within the team. So, which is, again, different methods of getting information, different ways of retrieving or receiving support requests. And typically we go through that step. If we get an email, we typically just create a case or open up a new case, attach that email to that case, and at which point a case ID is created for that specific support issue. where at that point we'll send an email to the client, to the specific contact who had the issue, and provide them with an email with reference to the specific case ID. If ever in the future they want to call us back or email us, they can give us that case ID to reference in future. And again, that's something that you can do as well within your business, whether it's by email or whether it's through a phone call. When you're speaking to them, you can provide them with that case ID for reference with this specific issue. Now, regarding routing rules, again, hopefully everything is fairly clear so far in terms of what I've described so far with regards to the cases. Now, in terms of routing rules, now we've gone through adding a case, resolving a case, reopening a case. Now, if we wanted to set up routing rules, and again, that's just to reassign these cases to other individuals, other teams, other queues within your environment, within your business, you can do that through the settings. So if we go to the navigation bar at the very top, simply locate settings, and you want to go to service management. Now here you have routing rule sets. So here we can create a new one. So this is the example that I created, which routed the case record, which was of an origin phone, to another user. So we can take a look at this, and we'll also go through the steps of creating a new routing rule. So here's the example that we have. When you create a routing rule, you simply, it'll ask you to create a name for your routing rule set. And they call it set because you can have multiple conditions, multiple rule items, as you can see here. You can have different kinds of conditions to route different items from within your cases. So in this case, I've only have one item, and here's an example where the cases that have a phone origin are assigned to another user within the company. So let's deactivate this for a second. And again, for those of you who are here in this session, if you do have any questions, please feel free to put them down in the message box within your GoToWebinar console, and we will keep records of those questions, and we will send you an email with all of the detailed answers to those questions to each of those of you who are here today. So once again, we've created a new routing rule set. Here's my example. You create a name for it, one that, at least you'll understand as to what this routing rule will be doing. With phone origin. Okay. You can put a little bit more detail to your description. And once you've done that, once you've saved it, it'll allow you the opportunity to create your rule items or the conditions as to what will happen when certain fields are set within your case record. So we'll open up this one here. Here we have the first rule item that we've created, or at least I've created previously. It was the phone origin rule, reassigning cases that originated from a phone call to another user. So all we did there was create the title, one that again will make sense to you and your organization, put a description to it as well. And here we have the criteria. So this is where you would enter your conditions as to, what you want the system to check for within the case before sending it to the specific individual, team, user, or queue within your organization. So in this case, I created a condition in which, let's just clear this one. We want to create a condition where in the case that we're looking at, this will show us the fields and the items within the case record that we can search by and set our conditions to. Here we've selected the origin field, which contains the different items in terms of where this case record or this support call is coming from, whether it's a phone call from web, from Facebook, I think, or from whatever else is on that drop down. We can see that here as well. So we can set this so that we can check the case origin where it equals phone. And you can add items here as well. It's just another drop-down field to which you can modify in your customization. In this case, we want to do it so that it's to a phone call. So if the origin of the support call is from or a support item is from a phone, I want something to happen. And in this case, we want to reroute this case record to, as you can see here, route to a user. So you simply click on user, click on the user that you have within your organization from within the list here. It's a lookup. And once you've done that and everything is as it should be, you can hit save and close. Now, once you've saved and closed, you'll see your rule item here on this list, and you can create multiple. And it's important to take note that if you have multiple rule items here, the order is also very important. As you can see, if you added another one, you can reorder them, and it's important so that it checks specifically, how you want these items to be processed. So once we have the rule items that we want to be set up already saved within our rule set, you can then, if everything else is correct, you can activate this rule. Perfect. As you can see, once we've activated it and everything is correct, it will show an active status. Now let's go back to our cases. So everything is done. We've created our rule set. We've created our rule item. Now we'll go back to our service module. Quickly jump over to our cases item. And let's create a new case. So again, we'll go through the process from the beginning. So for example, I received a phone call saying that there's another problem with one of our applications here at the one of the applications that they're using in their company in which we support. Okay. Now the origin, again, this is where our routing rule will be triggered once we've saved and routed the record. So we've selected the phone origin. I received a phone call. In this case, I want to add a phone call. Great. Incoming. Click OK. Great. So we can save it, or you can go directly to saving and routing this case record. And because we only have one rule item, it's only going to run and go through that one condition to check to see if this phone or this the case record is coming from a phone call, in which it is in this case. So if we hit save and route, it'll ask you, do you want to apply? Click route. And again, I think we've set it so that it goes to that business application user that we recently set up. Okay. problem application. As you can see, previously it was one that I had created, but now has been reassigned to business application platform service account user. And that was simply through the routing rule that we created. And so it's very helpful. And again, depending on what the rule items you've set within your environment, you can definitely be more efficient in terms of pushing these cases and these support tickets over to the right individuals and the right team within your company. Okay. Now we'll jump over to dashboards and views. Now within CRM, and if you're using CRM already, you're familiar with dashboards and views already, but it's great to use the dashboards, especially for cases, for your support team. Again, you can customize your dashboards in such a way where you can see the most important information for you and your team. So that's a little bit more, a lot easier for you to deal with the support tickets that you might be receiving on your end, and to be able to get a quick glance of what's happening within your support environment. So in this case, I didn't create a new dashboard. There were some preset ones here within this environment, and just looking at the customer service manager's dashboard. Again, you can create your own, have your own different graphs, different views to look at within your dashboard. In this case, they have active cases by agent, resolved cases by owner. They have a case mix by priority, cases by queues if you had any, entitlements expiration. So there's different ways that you can have this information displayed here. And it's, for me, I like to have a dashboard set up showing me my open cases, especially for myself and in being a part of the support team here at CRM Dynamics. Having those open cases available keeps me on top of the items that I need to look at. In addition to that, you can have, again, if you are a manager of the support team, you can see how many cases you have assigned to specific individuals, to specific agents in this case. And you can, if you need to reassign, depending on the load that your agents are able to hold, you can reassign them, set different routing rules again, or different workflows to reassign this information to different individuals. In this case, it's a lot easier for you than having to email them individually saying, how many cases do you have, or running a separate report or an advanced find view within CRM to see how many cases are available or assigned to certain individuals. In this case, you just have a full view of what's happening within your support environment. So I think it becomes very useful in that sense, and very beneficial to stay on top of things as well. You can show how many cases you have open for X amount of days, how many, in the case, if we go back to our cases here, you can create views that show you all of your cases that have opened in the last 7 days or resolved in the last 7 days. And again, this is all very customizable for you depending on how your support team works and how you keep track of all the information, how you want to view that information. But out of the box, it provides you with pretty straightforward, pretty good views for you to use offhand without you having to customize anything right out of the box. Make use of this information here. And you can plop these views right directly into the dashboards that you create in the future. There you have it. Okay, great. So outside of the dashboards, again, there's the views that you can create, which we've taken a look at already, along with the different charts that you can associate and create based off of those views that you create. Now, we're not going to go through that step of creating the different charts or even the different views, but if you do have any questions on that, please feel free to put those in the box below, and we can definitely reach out to you and provide you with steps or even documentation on how to create these charts, as well as the different views associated to your cases. And I think that's it. I think that's what we'll cover for today. Hopefully this has been pretty helpful for you, especially if you've never seen cases or used cases before. I know it's in my experience, not many people have used it or have even thought about using cases, just because they just had no idea what they could do for the organization. But again, if you do have a help desk environment, a support team, even if it's not a help desk, but just a support structure within your business, this can definitely be something that be beneficial and also very helpful for your environment. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them down here. If not, you can definitely email us with those questions as well, and we can definitely assist you with that, with those questions and steps to assisting you to better set your environment up for use of support tickets and incidents and cases within your CRM environment. So thank you very much for your time. I think we have about 10 minutes, so if there are any questions within the message box, I'm not seeing too many here, but again, feel free to reach out to us if you do have those questions. But other than that, thank you very much for your time, and hopefully you've learned something within the support session that we have today. Thank you very much.